very basic car, they have a fuel filter, the injectors, all right, and the pressure regulator and air cleaner, okay, evaporative emission control system, and fuel gas sending unit and pump. So pump is for, of course, pumping the fuel to the fuel filter, okay, and normally you have to filtrate it before you inject to the combustor, right? In case there are some, particles or something, some impurities inside the fuel, okay. And injectors is make sure the fuel can be automized properly, because fuel has to be automized properly in order to combine, to mix with the air, okay, to have a good combustion, right? So that's a fuel supply system. And then ignition system. So ignition system including some spark plugs for the SI engine, okay. And there's a distributor cap and rotors, right? That's the ignition system. And then cooling system. So you can see there's a coolant recovery system, which they recover your coolant. So normally, if you go to the car shop, you can go buy there's a car coolant, okay. And normally, if you want, it's 50% of isopropanol or some other chemicals, all right. To make sure, sometimes, especially in cold weather area, if you are the coolant is to make sure, okay, if in colder area, they add 50% isopropanol. Sometimes they are trying to, if you are in cold region, if your temperature is below 0 degrees, make sure your coolant is not freeze. Okay. So most likely they have a downflow radiator, and there's a water pump, the coolant jacket, all right. Then there's a thermostat, okay, to tell you what is the temperature now, okay. If the thermostat is telling you, okay, which you can see there's an indicator inside the indicator in front of you. If you see the temperature is too high, which means your coolant system has some problems, okay. But most likely is the coolant is not flowing. That's one of the problems. Or another problem could be maybe there's a leakage, so your coolant is dripping, so you are running out of coolant. Mostly, the coolant is not going to freeze, and it's not going to be boiled as well. So it will not disappear. It's just circulating. The coolant is circulating. Okay, the coolant is circulating. Okay. So mostly the coolant is running like this. All right. So if you found your coolant is disappeared somewhere, which means there are some leakage from your coolant system. And another one is a lubricating system. Lubricating system. Okay. And then the starting system. So we have the starters connecting, and we have the batteries and ignition switch, alternator belt, alternators. So most likely, when you start your engines, when you start your engines and starters, connect to your battery. Okay, so yeah, you turn you switch your ignition here and connect to the main fuse and connect to your batteries and also connect to your starters. Okay, and sometimes you feel like your engine cannot be started. Most likely, could be the battery is bad or starter is bad. And engine control and management system. So something want to say is you can see there's a exhausting control system, exhausting control unit. Okay, the oxygen sensor. Okay, there's an oxygen sensor here. There's an oxygen sensor here. Okay, so the oxygen sensor normally is going to before the oxygen sensor will be installed before the catalytic converter. Okay, to make sure, okay, the oxygen concentration is proper before it goes into the catalytic converter. Okay, and you can see there's a NOx catalyst here to reduce the NOx. All right, and in here there's a fuel pressure sensor and pressure control valve, and there's a EGR valve, exhaust gas regulator to make sure the NOx is low. That we will be mentioning in the last chapter. Okay, so that's the engine control and management. Okay, so that's for all the engine components. So we move on to the engine geometry. So engine geometry, uh, this is your piston, and the length of the piston we call a B, and the length of the connecting rod is L, and the crank angle is A, the stroke is S. So stroke is the moving distance of the piston. Okay. So this is should be crankshaft. A is the crankshaft, the length of the crankshaft. Crankshaft length. Okay. And theta is a crank angle. Okay. So there's a TDC refers to the top dead center. Refers to the crankshaft being in the position at theta equal to 0. there's a BDC, there's a TDC, there's a BDC, which the crankshaft as theta equal to 180 degrees. Okay. So we have the V1, which is a cylinder volume at the bottom dead center, and V sub C, which is a cylinder volume at top dead center. Okay. And we also define as a RV is the compression ratio. So this compression ratio is the volume of BDC divided by the volume of TDC, which we call the volume of in the BDC is V1, and the volume in the TDC is V sub C. So that is our compression ratio. And then we have the V sub D, we call the displacement volume. Then this displaced volume is the volume at BDC, bottom dead center, minus the volume at top dead center, which is the biggest volume minus the smallest volume. So that is, I can say this is the volume of the displacement. You calculate the volume of the cylinder. So that is pi over 4. B is the length of the board, B squared times the stroke. Okay, also the V1 is also, of course, the VBDC. It's the compression ratio divided by compression ratio minus 1 times the displacement volume. And then the number of the N sub C representing the number of cylinders, N sub C. So displaced volume is also equal to the number of cylinders multiplied by the displacement volume. So it's pi over 4 B squared S. And there's a use of P bar is a mean piston speed, which is 2 times the N. N is the engine speed times the stroke S. So this UP mean piston speed is a piston travel a distance of twice the stroke per revolution. Okay, there's a per revolution, and you have a piston. Okay, and the speed travel distance. So one stroke, two stroke, that's a revolution. Okay, so what is the speed it's traveling for this revolution? That is our mean piston speed. And omega is the engine frequency, refers to the rotation of the crankshaft. Okay, then the power, torque, and efficiency. The power, WP, this is our, we call brake power. Okay, WP dot. It's a rate at which the work is done, measured by dynamometer. We call brake power. And also tau refers to the engine torque. It's the measure of work done per unit rotation of the crank. So the brake power can be calculated by 2 pi times the tau, which is engine torque, and multiply by the engine speed, because it's a per unit rotation. So multiply by engine speed. So per unit rotation multiplied per unit the engine speed multiplied by the work done per unit rotation multiplied by 2 pi. That is our brake power. Okay. And there's a WI, we call the indicate work, which is a network transferred from gas to piston during the cycle. So this indicate work for the four stroke. Okay, for the four stroke is multiplied by the indicate work multiplied by the engine speed divided by 2. This is for four stroke. If it's a two stroke, it's the number of cylinders multiplied by indicate work multiplied by the engine speed. This is a two stroke. Okay. We also have the WF that this is the friction power loss. Okay, so that is the indicate work minus the brake power. So the indicate work, the difference between the indicate work and the brake power is our friction power loss. And tau m is the mechanical efficiency. Okay, which is the WB dot the brake power by the indicate work. So indicate work, okay, the network transfer from gas to piston during the cycle. The indicate work is the one you give, the one you're expecting. To T is a brake power, the rate at which the work is really done, really measured by the dynamometer. Right? So the difference is the friction power. It's a power loss, right? So this is also equal to 1 over the friction power loss by the indicate work. And then there's a mean effective power, MEP. Okay, so the MEP is the work done per unit displacement, unit force, per unit force and area. So per unit displaced volume, per unit force and area. That's the MEP. So if it's an indicate MEP, indicate mean effective pressure, IMEP, we call IMEP, is the network per unit displacement volume done by gas during the compression and expansion. That's the IMEP. Okay, then the BMEP is the brake MEP. Okay, it's an external shaft work done by the engine. So MEP, we have the IMEP, which is a network by the gas during a compression and expansion. And if it's an external shaft work by the engine, it's a BMEP. Okay, and this BMEP can be calculated by 4 pi multiplied by the tau, the torque, divided by the displacement volume. This is for 4-stroke. You divide it by 2 pi times the torque by displaced volume. That is for two-stroke. Okay. So the BMEP for the four-stroke engine, I can also calculate it by the brake power divided by displacement volume times the engine speed divided by 2. This is for four-stroke. Two-stroke divided by 2. So this is two-stroke. I can also calculate as 4 times the brake power multiplied by the number of cylinders, the piston area as a P, and engine piston speed, mean piston speed. This is also for four-stroke. Right? The distance the piston traveled multiplied by the piston area, that is the volume of the cylinder, right? And for two-stroke, two-stroke. And of course, there's a brake power, there's indicate power, there's a friction power loss. Of course, there's a for mean effective pressure, there's a indicate mean effective pressure, there's a brake mean effective pressure, there's a friction mean effective pressure, right? So the friction mean effective pressure is the indicate mean effective pressure minus the brake mean effective pressure. So in terms of the engine performance test, There are three characteristics. Number one is the brake torque. And number two is the brake power. And number three is the brake specific fuel consumption. We also call BSFC. So you can see if you make a drawing of brake power in terms of horsepower, and brake power and engine speed. Okay. And you can draw the torque like this. And then this is a power and this is a fuel consumption. Okay, so normally we measure these three characteristics as the engine performance test. And the power, the torque, and the speed, they can be measured by dynamometers. Sorry. People call it dynos or dynamometers, right? So for the dynamometers, there are three types of dynamometers. Number one, we call the fluid or hydraulic. Fluid and hydraulic dynamometers, or another name is the water brakes. So you can see why it's called water brakes, because I have the water in and water out running through it, and there's a water circulation. Okay, and it absorbs the power from the engine. And the second one, which is quite a popular one, is the eddy current. The eddy current dynamometers, which absorb the power from engine as well. And number three is electric dynamometers, which is absorb the power from the engine or deliver the power to the engine. So for the hydraulic dynamometers or eddy current dynamometers, it's only absorbed the power from engine. But this electric dynamometers, it can also deliver the power to engine. Okay, that's something different from the other two dynamometers. So I can use it to motor the engine to measure the friction power. And normally we use the AC electric dynos. AC electric dynos, they are newer and response faster. For the fuel consumption, this is the dynos is for power, torque, and speed measurement. If you want to measure the BSFC, the fuel consumption, specific fuel consumption, okay, the measurement includes two types. Okay, you can measure by mass, or you can measure by volume. Okay, so if you measure by volume, it's using the rotor meter. It's a float in a tapped tube. So rotor meter will be like this. So you have a fuel flowing through, and you can see there's a kind of a ball, okay, flowing through. So the reading affected by viscosity of the fuel. Also, temperature will affect. Temperature will affect the reading. So different temperature, different viscosity, you will have some difference. Okay, but the position of this, you can call ball, or this point, or this indicator is depending on the gravity. Okay. Or we can measure the volume by the turbine flow meter. Okay, this is a turbine flow meter. Or measure the volume by positive displacement flow meters. Okay, the good thing for the positive displacement flow meters is this is independent of viscosity. Okay, but just like for rotor meter, the viscosity affects a lot, but the positive displacement flow meters, like, we don't need to take care of the viscosity. It can be measured by volume. It can be measured by weight as well, the mass. Okay, so mass, we use the steady state batch flow measurement, was the scale or beaker. The most famous one is the Coriolis mass flow meter. Or Coriolis flow measurement. Is the fluid pass through a vibrating tube, causing the tube to twist, and the amount of twisting is proportional to the mass flow. So you can see the fluid or the fuel flowing through. So when the fuel flowing through, there will be a vibration. There will be a vibration. Okay, so that will vibrate in the tube. Okay, tube will twist, right? And the amount of twisting, we can use the amount of twisting to proportional to the mass flow. Use the amount of twisting to calculate, to sensing the mass of the flow, mass of the fuel. We call Coriolis flow meter. Okay. I think this is for this hour, and maybe we have a 10 minutes break. We have a 10 minutes break, and we come back by 11. Okay. Okay, we continue on the class. So if you want to measure the air consumption, okay, the most common one we use the calibrate orifice or nozzle. And the orifice or nozzle, what they are trying to do is they set up a orifice, okay, across the floor. I mean, make the floor close. And they measure the pressure drop. Okay, then the pressure drop, the dP, the pressure drop across the orifice increases the flow rate. Okay, and the pressure difference measured was the pressure transducer. Normally calibrated by manufacturer under the control conditions. Okay, orifice or nozzle cause slight air restriction. So you have the flow flowing through and causing the pressure drop, and this pressure drop reflects the flow rate. So you can know what is the air flow rate, how much air is consumed. And the next one is the volumetric efficiency. The definition of the volumetric efficiency is the mass of the fuel and air induct into the cylinder divided by the mass that will occupy the displacement volume. At a density low I in the intake manifold. Okay, so the volumetric efficiency is going to be the mass of fuel and air. So let's say mass in, the mass flow rate of the fuel and air induct into the cylinder divided by the mass that would occupy the displacement volume. So the displacement volume, okay, multiplied by the density and engine speed divided by 2. This is for 4-stroke. Okay. The density low I is the one that occupies the displacement volume. Okay, so the mass of fuel and air getting into the cylinder does not necessarily to occupy all the displacement volume. Okay, so how much it occupied? It's how much it occupies is the volumetric efficiency. And this mass in is the mass of the air plus the mass of the fuel. But for the direct injection, we only consider the mass of the air. So mass of the fuel, we have to consider as a zero. We look at one example. A four-stroke 2.5-liter direct injection automobile engine is tested on a dynamometer. At a speed of 2,500 RPM, it produces a torque of 150, and its volumetric efficiency is measured to be 0.85. What is the brake power and the mass airflow rate through the engine? And the inlet air pressure and temperature are 75 kilopascal and 40 degrees. Okay. So the engine power we know is 2 pi tau multiplied by the engine speed. So 2 pi, the torque, and the engine speed, 2,500 divided by 60. So this is 39.3 kilowatts. And then we know the volumetric efficiency is going to be the mass flow in, not mass flow rate of fuel and air in, all right? And we know this is direct inject, right? It's already telling you this is a direct inject. What is that? Oh, direct inject. So we only consider the mass of the air for this. All right. Density, the displacement volume, engine speed by 2 for four-stroke engine. We look at the density. How to calculate density? We do the ideal gas law. So P by RT. Okay, so this is and this is equal to 0.85. All right. So we know the engine speed and we know the displacement volume. We know the density, right? Equal to 0.85, 85%. So we can calculate the mass flow rate of the air. Okay. So the next one is the specific fuel consumption. So for specific fuel consumption, just like the power, we have the brake power, we have the indicate power, we have a friction loss. Uh, Fuel consumption, we also have the brake specific fuel consumption, BSFC. So the BSFC is the mass flow rate of the fuel divided by the brake power divided by the brake power is 2 pi tau times the engine speed. If it's the indicate specific fuel consumption, which we call ISFC, is the fuel mass flow rate by the indicate power. And there's a brake thermal efficiency is the brake power divided by the mass flow rate of the fuel multiplied by the heat of combustion, QC. So this is like you burnt, supposedly you burn that much of the fuel, give you that much per unit of the fuel, you give you that much of the heat of combustion, you give you that much energy. So supposedly you burn that much fuel, you supposedly you have that much energy, but your power is only this much, the brake power. Okay, that is our efficiency. And we know this is the inverse of BSFC, right? So that is 1 over BSFC multiplied by QC. We look at one example. A 6-cylinder 4-stroke automobile engine is being designed to produce 75 kilowatts at 2,000 RPM with the BSFC of 300 grand per kilowatt hour and BMEP of 12 bar. The engine is to have equal bore and stroke and fueled with gasoline with a heat of combustion 44 megajoule, 44.5 megajoule per kilogram. So 44,510 is the 44.5 megajoule per kilogram. So what it should be the design, displacement volume and bore. And number 2, what is the mean piston speed at the design point? And what is the fuel consumption per cycle per cylinder? And what is the brake thermal efficiency? So it's telling you the BMEP is 12 bar. Okay, so the BMEP is the brake power divided by the displacement volume, engine speed by 2. The brake power is 75 kilowatts. Engine speed is 2000. So this one we have. This one we have. And BMEP is 12 bar. So I can calculate the displacement volume to be 3.75 liters. This is equal to the number of cylinders, how many cylinders we have, multiplied by pi over 4, the bore square, multiplied by stroke. Okay, and they say the engine is to have the equal bore and stroke. The B and S, they are the same, which means I can have like this. 6 cylinders. So I can calculate a bore equal to 92.7. This is also equal to the stroke. So the mean speed is 2 times the engine speed times the stroke, right? So I have the engine speed, I have the stroke, so I can calculate and then the fuel consumption per cycle per cylinder. So BSFC is the fuel consumption. I use a bar, means the per cycle per cylinder, divided by the brake power. And this is equal to 300 gram per kilowatt hour. Okay, so the fuel consumption per cycle per cylinder is we know this is 75. So this is BSFC multiplied by the brake power per cylinder. So you have to divide it by 6. Right? BSFC is 75. Sorry, BSFC is 300. Multiplied by brake power 75, divided by 6 cylinder, and 75 is, sorry, the BSFC is kilowatt hour, so divided by 60 per hour, 60 minutes. So that will be 62.5 gram per minute. Okay, that is per minute how many fuels is injected. Okay, per minute how many fuels is injected. And per minute, how many fuels? 62.5 gram of the fuel is injected, divided by engine speed by 2. So that is the fuel injected per cylinder per cycle. Because we already divide by 6, so we already know the fuel injected per cylinder, right? And we divided by engine speed by 2 per cycle. So that will be 0.0625, right? And then the last one is the break thermal efficiency, which is 1 over BSFC times the heat of combustion. So that is 27%. Okay, I think we still have 25 minutes until the end of the class. So we have a class example here. We have a class example here. Class example 1. A 16 the two-stroke engine with a compression ratio 9. Again, this come up. Produces a torque 1100 and a speed 2100 RPM. It has a bore 123 and stroke 127. What is the displacement volume? VD. Current volume of the cylinder, the engine BMEP, brake power, and mean piston speed. So class example 1 and also the class example 2. What is the brake power and brake specific fuel consumption, BSFC? And class example 3, the volumetric efficiency is 0.8. And inlet manifold density 50% greater than the standard atmosphere density, 1.17. If the engine speed is 2600, what is the air mass flow rate? So totally we have 3. The class examples 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so are we able to work on these 3 questions and turn in class, turn them in before 11:50, which is the end of the class today? Okay, you can give to your lecturer. Okay, either you can either use your paper or use I think touchpad is fine, right? Or use the piece of paper or use the your touchpad and write on it, and you turn it in the three examples. So you give the three answers. Okay, turn it in by before the end of the class. Or if you write on a touchpad, you can send an email to the lecturer. Okay, so please turn it in before 11:50. That will be your class practice. Thank you. Once again, we have three class examples. Class examples. Class example one, which is right here. Class example one and class example two. Class example two and class example three. So we have three examples, three class examples. Okay, you work on that. You work on these class examples now until the end of the class, which is 11:50 today, and try to the answer, turn in the answer. Okay, try to turn them in before the end of the class today. Okay, and you can give the paper, either the paper or if you write on touchpad, give the files, electronic files to the lecturer before you go. Okay, and if you already finish, uh, if you finish earlier, you can submit it, and you're free to go. Okay, thank you. Okay, if you finished, you can turn it in, give it to lecturer, and you're free to go. Yeah. Otherwise, you can keep working on it. And our next class is September 16th. Okay, our next class. So I'll see you 10 a.m. Right? So I'll see you next Monday. Thank you. Okay, I'll see you all guys next Monday. Thank you. Bye bye.